This is the story between Amina and her husband, Marrcus, who wanted to marry her because of her father's wealth. For you incoming couples, learn to know people well before you will say "I love you" in marriage. Welcome to Echoes from the Baobab Tree, where the timeless spirit of Africa comes alive through the power of storytelling. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, kindly do so. Thank you. Let's continue the story. The wind roared like a hungry beast as the helicopter sliced through the evening sky above the Niger River. The sun was setting, painting the clouds gold and red. Amina's heart raced. Her husband, Marrcus, sat beside her, his smile stretched too wide, too forced. She felt a strange chill crawl up her spine. "Amina, look down," Marrcus said, his voice soft but sharp like a knife wrapped in silk. "Isn't it beautiful?" She leaned over slightly, looking at the glimmering river far below. The waves sparkled like 1,000 mirrors. She smiled nervously. "Yes, it is," she whispered. Then everything changed. Marrcus's eyes darkened. His smile vanished. In one swift movement, he unbuckled her seatbelt. Amina gasped, confused. Before she could ask what he was doing, he shouted over the noise of the blades, words that burned her heart forever. "You should have told your father to sign everything over, Amina. Now you'll never stand in my way again." Amina's scream was lost in the roar of the engine as Marrcus pushed her out. Her body fell through the sky, spinning helplessly, her hands grasping at air. The cold wind slapped her face. She saw the rushing water below and thought, "This is the end." But it wasn't. When she hit the river, pain shot through her like fire, then darkness swallowed her whole. And that was how my story began. Now let me tell you how I, Amina Yusuf, ended up falling from the sky that evening in October 2018. It all started 2 years before that, in the busy city of Kano, Nigeria. I was 26 then, full of laughter and dreams. My father, Chief Yusuf, was one of the richest men in the north. People said his name opened every door, from government offices to foreign banks. He built schools, hospitals, and factories. To the world, he was a hero. To me, he was just Baba, the man who always called me my sunshine. But where there is light, there is always a shadow waiting to swallow it. That shadow came in the form of Marrcus. I met him at a charity event in Abuja in 2016. He was tall, smooth-talking, and handsome in that dangerous kind of way. He said all the right words, smiled at all the right times. When he looked at me, it felt like I was the only person in the world. We married a year later. The wedding was grand, the kind you see in movies. Musicians, foreign guests, golden decorations, fireworks that lit up the sky. I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. But I was blind to the truth hiding behind his gentle eyes. At first, Marrcus was loving. He brought me flowers, took me on trips, told me he wanted nothing but my happiness. But slowly, small cracks began to show. He would ask strange questions about my father's company. He'd press me to know who managed the bank accounts, who signed the business deals, who had the passwords. At first, I laughed it off. I thought he was just being curious. But one evening, I found him in my father's study, going through confidential files. When I confronted him, he smiled and said, "I was just admiring your father's brilliance." Something in his tone made me uneasy, but I ignored it. Love makes us foolish sometimes. By mid-2018, Baba fell sick. The doctor said it was heart failure. Marrcus changed after that. His patience ran thin. He started shouting, blaming me for everything, from his stress to my father's illness. One night, I overheard a phone call he made in Hausa. He thought I was asleep. His voice was cold. "If the old man doesn't sign the papers, we'll take what's ours another way," he said. My heart froze. I realized then that the man I had married wasn't who I thought he was. Still, I hoped I was wrong. I told myself he was just upset. But my instincts screamed otherwise. A week later, he surprised me with the idea of a helicopter ride, just for love, he said. He wanted to celebrate our anniversary in the air. I wanted to believe him. I wanted my marriage to work. So, I said yes. I didn't know that ride would change my life forever. When the helicopter lifted off from Zaria airfield that October evening, the sky was calm, the world below peaceful. But inside Marrcus's heart, a storm was brewing. I saw it too late, in the way his hands gripped the controls, in the way his eyes burned with greed. Then, the wind screamed. Then, he pushed me. Then, I fell. And just when the cold darkness of the river closed around me, something, or someone, pulled me back to life. But that, my friend, is a story for another time. When I opened my eyes, everything was dark. The air smelled of wet soil and river mud. My body ached as though every bone had been broken and glued back together. My head throbbed, and my throat burned from swallowing water. I was lying on the riverbank, half covered in reeds, trembling from cold and fear. The last thing I remembered was Marrcus's face, that cruel smile as he pushed me out of the helicopter. My heart pounded. I should be dead. The night was silent except for the croaking of frogs and the distant rumble of thunder. I tried to move, but pain shot through my leg. My clothes were torn, my hair tangled, but I was alive. Somehow, the river had spared me. Maybe it was God's mercy. I whispered, "Ya Allah, why did you let me live?" Then I remembered, my father. Baba. He was still alive, lying sick in the hospital in Abuja. He had no idea what Marrcus had done. Tears filled my eyes. Marrcus would think I was dead, and if Baba found out, the shock would kill him. I had to reach him, but no one could know I was alive. Not yet. The next morning, after hiding in the bushes all night, a fisherman named Malam Haruna found me. He was an old man with a kind face and rough hands. He looked shocked when he saw me crawling out of the mud, my dress torn and soaked. Inna lillahi. Child, what happened to you? He asked, rushing to my side. I wanted to tell him everything, but fear sealed my lips. What if Marrcus had people searching for me? What if Haruna told someone? So I lied. I fell from a boat, I whispered. Please, just help me get to a hospital. He nodded, helped me into his canoe, and rowed quietly across the river to a small village near Lokoja. There, an old woman named Momakanda treated my wounds with herbs and prayers. I stayed with them for 3 days, pretending not to remember much. Every night, I dreamt of Marrcus's face and woke up screaming. On the 4th day, I borrowed Haruna's phone and called my father's personal assistant, pretending to be a nurse from the hospital. Tell Chief Yusuf that his daughter is stable, I said softly, but that she should not be disturbed. I could hear the confusion in the assistant's voice, but I hung up quickly. I couldn't risk Marrcus finding out I was alive. By the end of that week, I managed to get a ride to Abuja in a vegetable truck. My body was still weak, but my mind burned with one thought: I will expose Marrcus. When I finally reached my father's private hospital suite late one night, the nurse nearly fainted when she saw me. Amina. We all thought you. Please, I whispered, pressing my finger to my lips. Nobody must know. Not even Marrcus. Especially not him. My father was asleep, his skin pale, tubes running from his arm. Seeing him like that broke my heart. I knelt beside his bed and took his hand. Baba, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. He tried to kill me. His eyes opened slowly. When he saw me, he gasped, trying to sit up. Amina, you're alive. I nodded, holding his trembling hand. Yes, Baba. But you must promise me, don't tell anyone. Not yet. Marrcus must think I'm dead. He stared at me, his eyes full of pain and pride. My child, what happened? So I told him everything, the lies, the fight, the fall. His face darkened with rage. That evil man. He fooled me too. I trusted him with everything. Baba, I said, we must be careful. He wants your companies, your money, your power. We need proof before we strike. He nodded slowly. Then we will wait. Let him think he has won. From that night, my father and I became ghosts. Only his doctor and one trusted nurse knew the truth. To the world, Amina Yusuf was gone, drowned in the Niger River. Days turned into weeks. I stayed in a small apartment my father arranged for me under a fake name, Zora Ibrahim. I wore scarves and sunglasses whenever I went out. Every newspaper headline told stories of my death. Marrcus gave interviews, pretending to cry. She was the love of my life, he said to cameras, wiping fake tears. Each time I saw his face on TV, anger burned inside me like fire. But I stayed quiet, collecting information, bank statements, old emails, anything that could prove his guilt. Then one night, around 11:45 p.m., as I sat scrolling through old photos on my laptop, a message appeared from an unknown number. It said, Amina, don't trust anyone. I know what Marrcus did. Meet me tomorrow at the old train station. Musa. I froze. Musa. My father's old driver who vanished months ago. Everyone thought he ran away after stealing money. But what if he didn't? What if he knew something? My heart raced. I wanted to believe him. Maybe he was my only chance to uncover the truth. The next morning, I put on a hoodie and dark glasses, covering my face. The air was heavy with dust as I approached the abandoned train station on the outskirts of Abuja. Broken tracks lay rusting under the hot sun. I saw a man standing in the shadows, wearing a faded cap. When he turned, I recognized him, Musa. He looked older, thinner, his eyes darting around nervously. He whispered, Amina, I thought you were dead. I almost was, I said. Tell me everything you know. He glanced around and leaned closer. Marrcus was never alone. He works with powerful people, politicians, businessmen. Your father's empire was their target. The marriage was part of the plan. I gasped, my hands trembling. Who are they? Before Musa could answer, the sound of a car engine roared nearby. Tires screeched. Shots rang out. Musa's eyes widened. He pushed me to the ground. Run, he shouted. But it was too late. The last thing I saw was Marrcus stepping out of a black SUV, a gun in his hand, his face twisted with rage. He aimed and fired. The gunshot echoed through the empty train station like thunder. My ears rang, and my heart stopped. I saw Musa fall to the ground, his shirt blooming red. I froze, my body refused to move. The world slowed down. Musa! I screamed, crawling toward him, but Marrcus's voice sliced through the air. Don't take another step, Amina, he said, his gun still pointed at me. His eyes were cold, lifeless, the same eyes I'd seen in that helicopter. You should have stayed dead. I trembled, my hands raced. The smell of gunpowder hung thick in the air. Why, Marrcus? I whispered. Why did you do all this? My father trusted you. He laughed, a cruel sound that made my skin crawl. Your father is an old fool sitting on a gold mine. I gave him a chance, but he wouldn't hand over what was mine. So I took it another way. Musa groaned weakly, his fingers twitching. Marrcus turned his gun toward him again. I screamed, no, and grabbed a handful of sand, throwing it in his face. He cursed, wiping his eyes, and fired blindly. I felt the bullet whiz past my ear as I dragged Musa behind a concrete pillar. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely think. Stay with me, Musa, I whispered, pressing my scarf against his wound. Please, don't die. He coughed, blood on his lips. Amina, listen, inside my jacket, there's a USB drive. Everything you need to destroy him, his accounts, his partners, take it. Tears streamed down my cheeks. No, you tell me yourself. We'll go to the police. He shook his head weakly. There are no police you can trust, only one man, Inspector Adabowale. He's not like the others. Then his eyes dimmed. His hand slipped from mine. Musa! I cried, shaking him, but his body went still. Footsteps echoed. Marrcus was coming closer, reloading his gun. You can't hide, my love, he said, his voice calm and cruel. You were always too soft for this world. I wiped my tears and took the USB drive from Musa's pocket. My mind raced. There was only one way out, through the broken wall behind the station. If I could reach the woods, maybe I could disappear again. I crawled low, heart pounding, as Marrcus's shadow grew longer on the dusty floor. I made you, Amina, he sneered. Without me, you're nothing. I didn't reply. I just ran. Bullets cracked behind me as I dashed through the hole in the wall, cutting my arm on sharp metal. Pain burned through me, but I kept running. My lungs screamed for air as I stumbled into the trees. Dogs barked in the distance, maybe his men were coming. I ran until my legs gave out. I fell to the ground, gasping. The night had swallowed the forest. Crickets sang, and somewhere far off, thunder rolled. I clutched the USB tightly in my fist. It was warm from my palm, the last thing Musa gave his life for. After hours of wandering through the dark, I reached a small roadside shack. The sign read, Jade's Repairs. A man with a flashlight stepped out, looking surprised to see a woman covered in mud and blood. Sister, are you okay? He asked. His voice was deep, steady. I need help, I said, breathing hard. Please. I'm being haunted. He frowned, studying my face. Wait, you look familiar. Aren't you? No names, I cut in. Just help me hide. He hesitated, then nodded. Come inside before someone sees you. Inside the workshop, the air smelled of oil and rust. He locked the door and gave me water. You can call me Jade, he said. And you're safe here, for now. I looked at him closely. Something about his face stirred a memory. Then it hit me, I'd seen him before at my father's factory. He used to work in security before being fired after accusing a top manager of fraud. You worked for my father, I said slowly. His eyes narrowed. So you are Amina Yusuf? I nodded, too tired to pretend. Yes. And Marrcus tried to kill me, twice. Jade sighed. I believe you. That man ruined my life too. Got me fired when I exposed his dirty deals. I've been collecting evidence ever since. I showed him the USB drive. This has everything. Musa said it could destroy him. Jade's eyes widened. Then you have the key we've been waiting for. He connected the USB to his old laptop. Lines of data flashed on the screen, bank transfers, offshore accounts, documents with names of politicians and shell companies. My stomach twisted as I realized how deep Marrcus's corruption ran. This could shake the whole city, Jade whispered. But if we leak this now, they'll hunt us both down. What do we do then? I asked, gripping the edge of the table. He looked up, his eyes fierce. We find someone who still believes in justice, Inspector Adabowale. He's been investigating Marrcus for years. If anyone can help us, it's him. I hesitated. What if he's one of them? Jade shook his head. He's the only honest cop left. I'll contact him tonight. Outside, lightning flashed across the sky. The rain started, soft at first, then heavy and wild. The sound filled the workshop, drowning out everything else. For the first time since the fall, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe I wasn't alone anymore. Maybe this time, justice was possible. But hope can be dangerous. Because at that very moment, across town, Marrcus was on a phone call with someone powerful. "Find her," he said, his voice cold and certain. "Before she reaches the inspector. No more mistakes." The rain poured harder. The hunt had begun. The rain fell in thick sheets that night, drumming against the tin roof of Jade's small workshop. Each drop sounded like a ticking clock, reminding me that time was running out. Marrcus now knew I was alive, and that meant he would stop at nothing to find me. Jade paced the floor, his phone glowing dimly in the dark. "Inspector Whale just replied," he said. "He's willing to meet us, but it has to be somewhere private. Marrcus has spies everywhere." My heart pounded. "Where?" He hesitated. "At the old warehouse near the Kaduna train yard. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. I swallowed hard. That place was dangerous, abandoned, quiet, and crawling with rats. But we had no choice. The USB was our only weapon. That night, I barely slept. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw Musa falling, heard the gunshot echoing again. Guilt gnawed at me. He had died for this, for me. By morning, the sky was grey, and the air was thick with the smell of wet earth. Jade cooked a little porridge and handed me a bowl. "Eat," he said. "You'll need your strength." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Do you think the inspector will believe us?" He looked at me seriously. "If he sees what's on that drive, he'll have no choice. But once we hand it over, things will move fast. You have to be ready." "Ready for what?" I asked softly. "For war." That evening, we left the workshop. Jade had borrowed a small Toyota Corolla that looked like it had survived 10 accidents. The roads were slick and quiet as we drove toward Kaduna. Streetlights flickered weakly, and puddles reflected the headlights like broken mirrors. When we reached the warehouse district, my stomach knotted. The place looked haunted, rows of empty buildings, windows shattered, walls covered with graffiti. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. We parked behind a stack of rusty shipping containers and waited. My fingers clutched the USB drive inside my pocket. It felt heavier than ever, as if it carried every soul Marrcus had hurt. At exactly 8 p.m., a car's headlights appeared down the road. A tall man stepped out, wearing a dark raincoat and holding an umbrella. His face was familiar from news reports, sharp eyes, a weary expression. "Inspector Adabo Whale." He approached slowly, scanning the area before speaking. "You must be Amina," he said quietly. "And you're Jade, I presume?" "Yes," Jade replied. "We have something that can bring Marrcus down." Whale's eyes narrowed. "Show me." Jade plugged the USB into a small laptop and opened the files. As the inspector watched, his expression changed from curiosity to shock. Offshore accounts, government kickbacks, shell companies, illegal weapons, everything was there. This is enough to bury him," Whale said. "But you must understand, Marrcus isn't alone. The people backing him will come after anyone who exposes this." "I don't care," I said firmly. "He killed Musa. He tried to kill me. I won't run anymore." The inspector looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right. I'll take this to the Anti-Financial Crimes Unit. But we'll need to move fast and quietly. Until we go public, you both must stay hidden." Just as he said that, a faint noise cut through the rain, a faint click. Then another. Jade froze. "Did you hear that?" The inspector's hand went to his holster. "Get down." A second later, bullets shattered the quiet night. Sparks flew as metal ripped apart the shipping containers. I screamed and ducked behind a concrete pillar. Marrcus's men had found us. Ambush! Jade shouted, firing back with a pistol he'd hidden under his jacket. The inspector joined him, returning fire with calm precision. The warehouse filled with smoke and echoing gunfire. I crawled behind an old truck, my heart hammering in my chest. Every second felt like an eternity. I could hear Marrcus's voice outside, shouting orders. "Don't kill the girl," he yelled. "Bring her to me alive." My blood ran cold. Jade's voice cut through the chaos. "Amina, run. Take the inspector's car and go." "But..." "Go," he roared, firing another shot. I hesitated for a split second, then grabbed the USB and dashed toward the door. Rain hit my face as I sprinted into the darkness. Behind me, I could still hear the sound of gunfire. I reached the inspector's car and jumped in, fumbling with the keys. Just as the engine roared to life, a huge explosion tore through the warehouse. The blast threw me forward, the heat slamming against my back. I screamed as fire lit up the sky. "Jade!" I cried, tears blurring my vision. I wanted to go back, but flames engulfed the building. There was no way anyone could have survived. I pressed the gas pedal and drove blindly into the storm, sobbing, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My only thought was survival and justice. When I reached the outskirts of Abuja, I pulled over by a quiet roadside and stared at the USB in my hand. The evidence was still intact. I could still finish what we started. But then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. "We have your father. If you want him alive, come to the Unity Plaza tomorrow at noon. Come alone. Marrcus." My hands shook. My heart went still. He had Boba. The rain began again, soft at first, then heavy. I pressed the phone to my chest, whispering through clenched teeth, "You want a war, Marrcus? You get one." The next day would change everything. The plaza was full of people. It was noon on October 22, 2018, at Unity Plaza in central Abuja. The sun burned hot on the white stones. Banners from a charity fair fluttered in the wind. I walked into the crowd with my heart hammering like a drum. My hands shook, but my face was calm. I had to be brave for Boba. I had to end this. Marrcus stood on the stage, tall and smooth, with a microphone in his hand. Beside him, my father sat in a chair, weak and tired, but alive. He looked smaller than I remembered. People in the crowd whispered and pointed when they saw him. Cameras from 3 TV stations blinked red. Marrcus smiled at the cameras like a man who had already won. "My friends," he said loud so everyone could hear, "Amina Yusuf drowned in the Niger. She is gone. But today I found proof that shows she lied about our marriage. She betrayed my trust. She is a thief and a cheat." The crowd murmured. Some people looked shocked. Some looked like they wanted to believe him. I stepped forward. My legs felt like rubber. My throat felt dry. The world narrowed to the sound of my own breath. I looked at my father. His eyes met mine for a long second. He did not look away. "Marrcus," I called, my voice clear, "you lied to everyone. You pushed me from a helicopter because you wanted my father's money." A hush fell over the plaza. Children stopped playing. A bird flew up and circled the stage as if it knew something important was happening. Marrcus laughed, but it was a small, angry sound. "Show me proof, then," he sneered. "Where is your proof, ghost?" He stepped closer to my father and leaned down. "Confess in front of them all, old man. Tell them she stole from you. Tell them she is not your daughter." My father looked at me. His hands trembled. For a moment, fear took his voice. "Amina," he whispered, but then his mouth made a hard line. He stood up carefully. The crowd leaned in, hungry for the next move. Marrcus raised his voice so the cameras could catch every word. Confess. Say you've been tricked. Say she is a liar and a thief. My father's face was white, but his eyes were strong. He straightened his shoulders as best he could. My daughter is alive, he said. He survived the river. She is not a thief. Marrcus is the one who betrayed us. The plaza gasped as if a strong wind had blown through it. Marrcus's face changed from smug to furious. He turned to the crowd, pointing at me. She lied. She tricked you. She wanted my money too. He winked at someone in the back. A man in a black suit moved closer to the stage. I recognized him as one of Marrcus's bodyguards. My mouth felt dry and hot. At that instant, someone in the crowd screamed. The sound split the air. Marrcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a gun. Time froze. Children screamed. People ran. My heart dropped to my knees. Marrcus, no. I yelled. My father stepped in front of me, reaching out with a shaky hand. Amina, run, he cried. The crowd pushed and swayed. Then, without warning, a shot rang out. The crack was loud enough to make my ears burn. Marrcus staggered backward, his hand dropping the gun. Blood darkened his shirt. The man in the black suit fell to his knees beside him. Inspector Adabo stepped forward from the crowd, his face steady, his shirt damp with sweat. He had drawn his service pistol and fired with a calm I had never seen before. Marrcus collapsed on the stage, the microphone clattering into the dust. People screamed and cried. Some ran. Others froze, covering their mouths with their hands. My father fell into a chair, trembling, and began to weep. I sank to my knees, the USB in my pocket heavy as a stone. Police rushed in from every side. Marrcus was cuffed and taken away, shouting that he was framed. The TV cameras showed everything live, the fall, the shouting, the police, my father's tears. Inspector Whale handed me the USB and looked at me with tired eyes. You did the right thing, he said quietly. You were brave. In the days that followed, Marrcus's name was on the news for weeks. The files on the USB were shown to the courts. Journalists published every dirty secret, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the politicians who took bribes. People who had helped Marrcus were arrested. My father's businesses were safe again, the court said, and the money that was stolen began to return. But winning did not make everything whole. At Boba's house in Kano, nights were quiet and full of silence. I would wake in the middle of the night and jump at small noises. I would wake up sweating, hearing the helicopter and the river in my head. Sometimes I would see Musa's face in my dreams. I would think of Jade and the workshop and the flash of the warehouse fire. Some mornings, I could not remember how to laugh like before. On November 30, 2018, Marrcus was tried and convicted. The judge sentenced him to many years in prison. He wore a blank face as the gavel fell, but there were whispers in the courtroom that power and money still tried to hide him in the shadows. My father recovered slowly. He would sit by the window and look out at the fields he planted when he was young. He would hold my hand and say, "You are my daughter. You are my strength." His voice was softer now, but steady. I healed, little by little. I visited Musa's grave and left flowers. I wrote in a notebook about the river, the helicopter, the train station, the warehouse, the plaza, about every face and every fear. I learned to sleep without the helicopter in my head. I learned to breathe. But some things did not come back. The nights when I woke and could not stop shaking stayed with me. The cost of justice was high. Lives had been lost. People I loved had died. The money was returned, the company saved, and the law had been served. Yet the echo of Marrcus's betrayal lived in the quiet places inside me. Justice had come, but it left a scar. The river had given me life, the river had taken my peace. The end of Marrcus's story was not the end of mine. I would carry the memory of that day, the shot, the crowd, my father's brave words, for the rest of my life. Does the justice suit you or Marrcus' punishments would you suggest for Marrcus? Kindly leave a comment in the comment section below. Also, if you want more story like this, kindly subscribe. Thanks.